What's up, everybody? In this video, I want to talk to you about some guys that nobody is talking about that I think are potential draft picks for the Detroit Pistons. This could come in one of two ways: a surprise pick at number 5, where we go for talent, but more likely, we know that Troy Weaver is a big fan of trading back into the first round. He did it to get, I believe it was Isaiah Stewart in the past. And we have Jeremy Grant that we're just dangling out there. So a lot of times we like to talk about, what does it look like to trade Jeremy Grant for a pick? Everybody hopes for the Portland 7. I don't think that's going to happen. So let's look at what some of these other later prospects are. We've spent a lot of time talking about these guys, these tier 1, tier 2 prospects. The big 3, Holmgren, Smith, Banchero. I think Ivy should be in the big 4. But then you have Murray, you have Griffin, you have Sharp. We've talked about these guys. I want to talk to you about some of the guys that are on the rest. We've talked about Benedict Mathurin at number 5. He's not a sleeper pick. We've talked about him a bunch. So who are the guys I'm going to talk about? Let's talk about 5 or 6 different guys. And the first one that I love in this position is Tari Eason out of LSU. This guy is a good player. I believe he was the 6th man of the year in the SEC. He's 6'8", 217. He definitely gives me some Patrick Williams vibes from the Chicago Bulls when I watch him play. Not an unbelievable shooter, not an unbelievable ball handler, but he does everything pretty well and can be an absolute defensive stopper. Gets almost 2 steals a game. That's per game averages. If you go out to 36, it's even better. It's 3 steals a game. He has a high free throw percentage, already has a good 3-point percentage at 36%. And he's a player that when I'm looking at, I'm just saying, like, man, this guy has all the tools, all the skills to be drafted really high. I think he's been, in that 10 to 15 range because he's 21 years old and was coming off the bench. The next guy that I like in this, we'll go Jalen Duren. We can talk about him real quick. He's kind of fallen as this has gone. So don't be surprised if you see the Pistons make a move, get back into the first round to pick a guy like him. If he's sitting there at 14, 15, like, why would they not go for that? Like, of course they would go for that, right? So he's one of those guys, just jumpy jump guy, great athlete, big, strong, 6'11", 250 pounds, has to work on his offensive game, but would be a great lob threat and defensive stopper for the Pistons. But I'm going to talk about a guy that I might like even more than Jalen Duren next, and that's Mark Williams right here from Duke. Mark Williams stands at 7 feet 2 inches, and if you look at the stat strength versus the stat weaknesses, hello, right? I mean, like, that's a big deal. You're talking about a guy who's 20 and a half years old, and his stat strengths are all very, very good. The free throw attempt rate is where you have a problem, but not in free throw percentage. Shooting almost 73% for a big man, that's a good call. He rebounds at a pretty darn good clip, but he blocks everything in the area. He has a block rate that is near what Chet Holmgren had, but he was doing it in the ACC. I think there's a big difference there. His field goal percentage is high. A lot of those are dunks. So he has a lot of work to go. But when I'm watching the film on a guy like Mark Williams, I'm telling you right now, his shot, his free throw percentage would tell me the same thing. This is a guy who could be a pick and pop mid-range shooter. Not a 3-point yet. That's not what I'm saying. He didn't even take a 3-point attempt this year. But from 15 to 18 feet, I think this is a guy that you could absolutely have something big upside. And on the defensive side, I'm not saying he's Rudy Gobert, because he's not. Calm down, everybody. But he has that body prototype, doesn't he? It's a very similar size where it's just like, does he have enough motion? I mean, he's going to be in the pick and roll defense, he's going to be a drop big, your prototype drop big. But man, everything in the paint, he was swatting, and it was something that he really, you can tell, prides himself in doing. Number 15 there, Ousmane Dieng. I'm not a huge fan. I like what it could be. He's so young, but you'd have to understand that that is a project. His shooting percentage was all over the place last year, but it definitely started to click for him after a while. Okay, another guy that I do like is Ty Washington. This guy reminds me a little bit of like Hill of the old school, when you're looking at Pacers and things like that. I think that's a pretty good comparison for him. He's not an elite athlete, which of course he wouldn't be if he's sitting around that mid-first round tier. He's fine. His 3-point percentage was fine. His free throw percentage was okay. He had a decent assist rate, decent rebound rate. I mean, he doesn't do anything poorly. But I just kind of like the way I think he could be one of those guys that could slot in at the 1, at the 2, kind of play anywhere. I don't know if he fits what the Pistons are doing right now. That's the only thing about Ty Washington. You have to, if you're taking him, you're basically saying like, I don't think we have what we want in the backcourt right now. And so, and you're basically saying, I don't know if I like what Killian Hayes is doing. So I don't know if I'm all for that. I like Killian Hayes more at this point in his development. I think another guy that we have to look at as a sleeper, now we're starting to really get into the sleeper range, is Malachi Branham. Here's the deal about Malachi Branham that nobody seems to understand. He is a plus offensive player, and he is a negative defensive player. He's 19 years old. He's not 20. He's not 21. He's not 22. He was a freshman at Ohio State last year, and he is absolute fantastic number 2 guard next to Cade Cunningham. He would slot next to him wonderfully. I think he almost does. He's a less athletic version of what Benedict Mathurin does, except his numbers are a little bit better when it comes to this. And this is one thing that I didn't understand. And I even watched a few games with Malachi, but he shoots the 3-pointer at 41.6%, but only has 2.8 attempts per game. Like, I wish someone could explain that to me. His free throw percentages are good. He is a very good mid-range shooter. He can just flat out shoot. And if there's something you need to understand about me and what you'll notice with a lot of the people that I like guys who can put the ball in the bucket or have an elite defensive skill. And when I say you can put the ball in the bucket, there will always be a place for you on an NBA roster if you can just straight make shots. Like if you're a bucket, you're going to have a place on an NBA roster, and these Detroit Pistons are absolutely no different. A floor spacer, someone who you absolutely have to respect, is something that would be very, very important to Cade Cunningham and would open up lanes for him like crazy. So somebody like a Malachi Branham would be a really good, I think, pickup for the Pistons. Now I just want to talk to you about a guy or two. Then I'm like, okay, this is interesting to me. Do we take a flyer? And this is number 30. You have Patrick Baldwin Jr. down here. The stat strengths versus weaknesses are not great, everybody. I have to admit, this is purely talent upside. He's young. He's 19 years old. His father was his coach at Milwaukee. Injuries kind of offset the season, and it just went to crap. I don't know how else to say it. And it just didn't go well. And he's kind of relying on his athleticism, like his body type, his ability to shoot coming out of high school. We were talking like Michael Porter Jr. type status here. And then year 1 in college was just absolute garbage for him. So you're taking this on a purely upside, but when you watch, if you're not watching a full breakdown of this guy, if all you're watching is a highlight tape, you're saying to yourself, how is this guy not a top 10 draft pick? Like, he has the body, the athleticism, the shot mechanics, everything that you see in this guy. You're wondering, like, how is he not up there with Jabari Smith? But then you look at his numbers and they're bad. They are very, very bad. And he had that injury, which I think really hurt him. But there you go from there. And then my last one that I'm just going to talk about real quickly. I think this is I don't think we could get to him in the second round, but is Christian Coloco out of Arizona. And he's just a guy who just did a little bit of everything well. He was a good finisher around the rim, shot free throws well, good, decent at getting block shots, actually very good at block shots, getting rebounds. He's just not that big. I mean, he gives you the same height as some of the other guys we talked about, the Jalen Durans of the world, the Mark Williams, but he's 20 to 30 pounds lighter. I think he's still, and he's older. He's 22. So this is one of those guys, if he falls to the Pistons, and I believe it is 46, which I don't think he will, you definitely want to look at. So as you're looking at these guys, who are some of the people that you really like? I think when I just look at this, I would love and I would be happy with Tari Eason or Mark Williams. I think those are just really, really good fits. I think Tari Eason would be great to trade back into if you take a guard first. And I think that would be a fantastic add. Same with Mark Williams. Even if you took Matherin, or I'm sorry, even if you drafted Keegan Murray at 5, you could still take Williams and it would be a fantastic fit. And I think if we take Murray at 5, that's something that you're absolutely looking for. So, like as I'm finishing this and as I'm closing it out, one thing that I want to talk about with everybody is just like, hey, understand anything can happen on draft night. Let's be kind of aware of who the sleepers are. And there are good basketball players that are late in this draft. So make sure you stay tuned. Watch the whole first round. Let's, especially the lottery up till pick 20, and let's see if Troy Weaver gets back in there and does something. We've always talked about how, like, no, it's not great to trade back in. Well, he's proven in that mid first round with Sadiq Bey, with Isaiah Stewart. He's a guy who has proven that he can find talent at that spot. So let's just trust him a little bit. Let's do that. Hey, great watching this video with you. Hit that subscribe button below if you like this content or anything else. Hopefully you learned a little bit. Don't forget to join us live for the NBA draft on Thursday. We'll see you then.